and I'm going to post the terms of engagement in the chat. So if you would take a moment to read those. So this meeting is recorded. It is our only public meeting, and we do post it to YouTube. So you're welcome to stay off camera. It's posted to our YouTube public page. Um, you can use the raised hands when you have a comment or you want to weigh in. And we've been trying this new thing where we hand off. So if you have your hand raised when you're finished, you can just call in the next person. Um, if you're on your phone and you press the three little dots, you'll see it come up and it will say chat and then people. And the people is where you can see the order. Sometimes on your computer, like the order of who has raised their hand will pop up and you can access the people across the top if you're on your computer. But that's how you see who's next. If you don't know who's next, don't worry about it. Just say who's next, and somebody will jump in, or Jen Marie will call on them based on the order of hands. Um, it's okay to weigh in on the topic that is being discussed, or you can feel free to like switch topics and ask other questions. This is just a very informal witchy chat conversation that we have every Sunday at this time. And thank you all for joining us. Oh, I do have one announcement for members of the Foundations program. If you didn't catch the announcements in the newsletter, we have officially switched our platform. The platform that we had initially started Bright and Dark's website on, we've outgrown it. We have some exciting things coming up with the program, with our workbook, and also the shop has some exciting things coming up. And the new platform will allow us to be more user friendly and be able to just offer some more things. So we're excited about that. But what that means is I have to switch everybody over. So how we kind of discussed that was every week I will send a personalized email to those needing to switch over. And what it kind of means is like we'll have to like cancel you off the old one and then put you up on the new one. It's not really canceling, but it's like what they call it. So your membership won't be canceled, but you'll get like a cancellation email, but then immediately get an email from me to just sign up on the new website. We're trying to align it with your membership date, with your renewal date, your monthly renewal. So there's nothing you really need to do except wait for me to email you. So the only thing is just check in your emails. And if you know when your membership renews, know that it will be that week that I'll email, that you'll get an email. I'm going to try to get it all done in September through early October. I will try to, I'm just waiting for just some testing to be done on the new platform, and then we can get that process started. So that's my only announcement, and I'll pass it over to Jen Marie.
Thank you, Maria. Have fun at your cookout. There was like a little bit of concern this morning floating around because they're like, "Oh, we don't have anyone that can mod SASS Mass this Sunday. What are we gonna do?" And I'm like, I got a feeling that it's gonna be kind of a small turnout this week, and I think I can handle it myself, which I haven't modded a meeting probably in a good like year and a half. So, yay! I have mad respect for our mods. They show up and help us out so much. So if anything is like weird and I don't catch it right away, it's because I probably forgot that I'm modding and just need to be reminded. For those of you that are new, this is a very casual conversation. This is just us talking about life as a witch and life uh how we navigate life as magical practitioners. And when we share our experiences, it really helps us not feel quite so alone and not feel quite so much like the social outcast that, most of us are. So we get a new place, a special place to be outcast together and talk about the cool taboo witchy shit that we are all so very much into. With all of that being said, uh, does anyone have anything hot and burning they want to share? Anything that you're like, man, I've been waiting all week to talk about this. I want to know what the witches think. If you don't, I can feel into it a little bit more. A lot of what's been going on has been like change of the season kinds of stuff because we're approaching the autumnal equinox and uh, our relationship with these changes in the season is very likely going to be on the forefront of your mind. The trees are whispering about it. The wind is talking about it. Jenny Lee, I haven't seen you forever. You want to talk about it?
Yeah, I kind of, yesterday we had, our second annual ride for my late husband. And, we waited a little later this year so that it would be a little cooler. Because last year it was, 106 for a 90-mile ride. So we were all melted by the time we got back to the house. But this year we didn't have as many people, but we had a lot of fun. And I just really, all of us really felt my husband's presence. And he screwed with the bikes and he screwed with directions. And we wound up going a different way that nobody had ever been, didn't know where it connected to. Perfect road for a nice leisurely motorcycle ride. And so everybody kind of put that on their radar as this is a good ride. This is a nice loop. We had a barbecue and everybody just, I think I left there feeling more positive, more um, more in touch with not only Davy but just with myself. And I think every year as we have these, that feeling will grow. Um, and the kids and I have moved, so I have a different background now. I have a different bed, so this is my brick wall behind my bed. Um, but we moved, and so it's kind of a change of season. But not only that, it's a change of venue. And I've been trying to find my witchy spot here, and I think I finally have figured out where everything needs to be, and I just feel better, more positive about it today. Um, I wrote my first spell, Jemery. I was so proud of myself. I did. My sister-in-law's house is all done in nautical, and she and her husband are both retired from the Coast Guard. And so she wanted a jar of dirt for her front porch. And so I wrote a protection spell to go with the different kinds of dirt we put in the jar and crystals. And we did it on the last night of the full moon outside her house. Her husband was there, her brother-in-law was there, and we had a fire. And I felt so validated that night by my family for this path that I've chosen. So to me, especially with Will and Patrick, because they're both very dedicated Catholics, and they were asking me all kinds of questions, and they were so excited about doing the whole spell and being a part of it. And they've never really, neither one of them have ever really said much to me. So my sister-in-law now has a jar of dirt on her front porch that she will charge every full moon, take the lid off and charge it. And it's funny because I wrote the spell to go with Captain Jack sings, I've got a jar of dirt, I've got a jar of dirt. So that's the way the spell kind of rhymes a little bit. And it was really funny when we did it, and it felt really good and positive, and I could, a shooting star just as I finished saying the whole thing. So I think I got that one right. I was so proud of myself. I just really felt validated. Whoever's next, Miss Sickle.
Hey, I can totally speak to that. And it feels amazing. My mother is a very cynical atheist, and we've never connected on like any level. And recently, she's getting older. She's almost 80, and she bought a house less than a mile away from me, which is great, and also to my detriment. Anyway, we've butted heads a lot, but I didn't realize it since we both moved to the same town very recently. But she happened to buy a house in Trick or Treat Row, and her being extremely cynical, they're going to get 400 different people going by the house, and I'm all about trick or treating, and so I tried to tell her this, and she's like, "Well, I'm not into trick or treat. Halloween is whatever," and she wasn't listening to me. But eventually, the neighborhood kind of wiggled into her ear, and she started realizing, oh, this is a thing. And then recently suggested that, well, if it's such a thing, maybe I am interested in it. And maybe we could get a cauldron, and maybe we could make apple cider, and maybe we could put it on a fire pit outside, and everybody could come and warm their hands on the fire pit. And I'm just like, I'm 43 years old, and I've never felt like I've ever had a bond with my mother. And it's like, and now I get to be a witch with her on Halloween. It's amazing. It makes me want to cry. So yeah, I hear you. I feel you. I guess I should say, I don't know. Do we, I don't know how to close out or give it to somebody else, but
We've just kind of started because all of us kind of suck at figuring out how to like end whatever it is that we're talking about. So we just like and then just like jump off. So
yeah.
whatever feels good and right to you, you could just like jump off awkwardly because all of us kind of do that.
Yeah, I actually
Go ahead.
kind of want to talk a little bit about that. And I really appreciate you guys understanding the whole, every time I've come on, I've just been like so amazed by how people accept each other's awkwardnesses here. It's just like, it's so great. I've been definitely struggling with that lately, because it just seems like, I came on here a while ago in like January and explained about a good friend of mine that was having some issues with me. And it was like she wanted me to understand these social mores that are like inscripted into society that I've never quite understood. And like I was expected to show up at her house, um, at, like, or know when she didn't want me to be there, or know when she did want me to be there, and um, and I realized that that's not healthy, and I'm letting go of that relationship. I guess when I'm still trying to process my feelings on this, but I go to different avenues of like social media to look at, maybe somebody else feels this way. Maybe I could validate my experience through somebody else's experience. And then I find myself watching other people talking about how they have these relationships, and they're like, well, if they can't do what you want them to do, then you should just get rid of them. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was the person that couldn't do what she wanted me to do. And I mean, there's a lot of like power and like people are sticking up for their own truth and whatnot. But I think there's another side to it. And I always want to respond to these people. It's like, wait a second, did you request? Do you realize what this other person might be going through? Like, maybe it's not all about what we are demanding for ourselves in our lives. Maybe it's about communicating with others to see if they can actually give it to you. And it just, I don't know, I'm starting to get kind of angry at like a lot of these people that are so adamantly stating what, like, you should just get rid of these people if they can't give you what you need. If you feel my drift. So I kind of trying to find like a nice way to state my truth in that matter. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I might be one of those people that can't give you what you need, but if you ask me for it, I can say yes or no. You can't just like, it's no, I shouldn't say you can't, but if you're a person who's just cutting people off without any curiosity, what was it? Somebody said, get curious, not furious. I like that one. So, but yeah, I don't know. Has anybody else had a way that they've dealt with something like that?
I'm gonna weigh in here. It's so funny because I laugh because of how aligned so many witches are with the like what we do in foundations, because literally in October we talk about this and we go in depth into what you're talking about right now, which is about boundaries, right? And our relationship with boundaries. And a lot of us grow up thinking that boundaries are a list of like things that people have to do in order to interact with you, right? So this is what you need to do, and I can't have this in my presence. Like walls to keep people out, right? Or like rules to apply to people and make them do that in order to engage with you. And that's not necessarily, that wasn't my experience of what like healthy boundaries are. When I started to look at it as like terms of engagement, it changed everything. And so now when I approach boundaries, social boundaries, I tell people straight up, if you have an expectation of me, you need to tell me. You need to communicate that with me because I don't operate on assumptions, period. Right? And so much of neurotypical like interaction is based on these social agreements that we didn't agree to. I didn't choose to participate in that, and I refuse to. I see assumptions as clumsy communication, and I won't engage in that way. And those that are close to me and want to be close to me know this about me. And I if they get upset and and they haven't communicated an expectation with me, I don't take ownership of that. Like that's their responsibility to navigate those emotions. And do you see what I mean? Where it's about communication. It's about telling people exactly like what to expect from you. If you like come across any of these like things, man, words are hard today. Jeez. Um, so with things like your friend that, had these unspoken rules about how you were supposed to interact with them, you're allowed to put those boundaries forward too. So if they say, "Hey, you're supposed to show up at this time or not show up at this time or whatever," if they don't speak that and hold you to that, then you are allowed to communicate your terms of engagement and say, "Hey, if you need this, then I need this from you. This is how we meet in the middle." It's not like a dictatorship. Relationships are a cooperative arrangement, right? Um, I'm going to give Bridget. Bridget, did you want to weigh in on this as well?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Really, I don't have much to say aside from at some point, honestly, within the last year, I went from very much, blaming myself and I didn't figure out what they wanted and that makes me a bad friend and oh God, I totally suck at this to making peace with the fact that, and if somebody never says anything, I think it's extremely easy for me and for other people to be like, oh, I'm neurodivergent, whatever's going on, it must be on me because I didn't read their minds. And I think honestly, the conclusion that I've been coming to is that regardless of how your brain works, if an expectation is never ever stated or a problem is never ever brought up, then the person who never brought up the issue has responsibility for bringing up their own issue. And it's not just on you for not doing what they want out of miraculously figuring them out. I would just try harder. I'd be like, okay, I'm going to be more and more receptive to what they need. I'm going to work harder and harder to figure it out. And I'd get to the point where I'd lose myself. Like it would be exhausting. Like so much of what I needed and my own emotions and all that would be just rendered mentally irrelevant because I would have to work harder and harder and harder to try to, oh, this problem is just with me. I fucked up the first time. I have to be really, really on the ball, on top of my game. Every interaction we have, I'm going to anticipate their needs before they even state them. That's being a good friend. And then at one point, after a particular conflict with a particular person, I realized no. The person in question was extremely conflict averse and constantly complaining to me about other people. And, there was this constant sort of thing hanging over our heads of like, oh no, what if I'm the next disappointment? I have to work super hard. And inevitably I was. But I realized that's actually a her problem. If she literally can't tell anyone what she needs ever and then is constantly mad at them, but constantly fake nice, then that's also something she needs to work through. And I'm not all the way there yet. There's still definitely a part of me that like wants to be infinitely attuned to everything. But yes, and as respectful conflict is part of healthy relationships. I did going off that same thing. At one point I confronted her about that bothering me. Like you need to actually, because a lot of times I'd feel like I was having to fight her battles and she would expect me to. Like, I can't confront this person, will you? And eventually I got to a point where I just couldn't anymore. And, you know, I'll be honest, I share responsibility because I was pissed and I snapped. Immediately felt the need, oh God, I have to console her because she's upset that I'm upset with me. And that dug me even further into the pit of everything I have to do is appeasement. I've made her mad this one time. I made her seriously mad. She didn't talk to me for days. I need to be hyper attuned to her needs. And, instead of being like, hey, the first time I ever confronted you on a problem I had, you flipped out and had a super negative reaction to it and kind of like punished me for it in a lot of ways. And, really laid on the paranoia extra thick in terms of stuff you were saying of all the various ways me confronting you had hit this other thing and this other thing and this other thing. And like, yeah, like it was like I became the ultimate bad guy for having said I was uncomfortable with this thing. And instead of going, hey, a healthy conflict, would not be like this. And even if I made a mistake and I snapped at someone and then I said, oh, I'm sorry that I snapped at you, we could theoretically get past that. I shouldn't have to be perfect, neither should this person, but we should be able to, if we have a conflict, meet each other in good faith and try to work things out. And if we do find out we're incompatible personalities, that's sad. We'll drift apart, but I would much rather that than constantly trying to shape myself to expectations that are never stated. Yes, absolutely weigh in. That is basically all I had to say. Thank you.
I think that Amy, did you still want to weigh in? And then we'll get to Ben.
No, I'm good. You covered it. Thank you, though.
Okay, go ahead, Ben.
All right. So I am very much personality type that cuts people off. And it comes from years and years of trying to people please. And just getting the mantra that I use now, I actually put in the chat a couple of weeks ago, I think, of you can be a peach to everybody, but there are people who are allergic to peaches, you know? So like being nice to people only gets you so far. Eventually you're gonna meet a person who you're being nice doesn't even work for them. It's rude to them that you're doing that thing, you know? Um, but I will say that cutting someone off, at least for me, maybe it's not for everybody, but for me is like very much a last resort, right? Like if I'm cutting you off, we've been through this argument. And we've been through this argument like 5 times. And I don't want to speak these words again because how many times can you rephrase something before like you realize that what you're trying to communicate to someone isn't something that they can understand in whatever way that might be, you know? And that is definitely not to like harsh on how anybody communicates or has a relationship with someone else, like at all. That is just very much the conclusions that I've come to in my own in my own like social dynamics of friends and things. But yeah, like I would definitely say that like I don't know. I would cut someone off for sure, but it would only be after like we've had the discussion of like that's their boundary, this is my boundary, and neither boundary works for the other person without like trial and error, like to a very hard like I mean what Bridget was talking about, like losing yourself in trying to meet their own boundary. That's not meeting someone's boundary. You know what I mean? That's allowing someone to manipulate you into some form of behavior in some form or fashion. Um, but I don't know. I've met quite a few manipulative people in my in my short lifetime, leading me to just be I guess jaded at 33. But I believe Marie, you might be next. So go ahead.
Yes. So everyone that has their hand up, go ahead and click the button and put your hand down. There's like the 3 little dots if you're on your phone, and then it's up at the top of your screen if you're on the computer. Yay, there we go. We got this, guys. Okay. Um, this is such a wonderful conversation. When God, I can remember as a kid, like so desperate for companionship. I wanted friends so badly. I just wanted to be like, I wanted to be liked. I wanted to be seen. And being the, autistic, super psychic, autistic, little tiny, weird, blind kid, that was really challenging for me. It was really challenging for me to connect to anyone. And I always wanted, I wanted this like big friend group. And it was just like the more people that loved me, that meant that I was lovable, is what I really believed. And it wasn't until I got like super into community work in my like early 30s, and I did have a massive circle of like friends, that I realized that they're like circles, like an onion. My friend groups are like an onion, right? And everyone is in a different ring according to those terms of engagement boundaries. Whether I don't have people that are really close to me that are not able to have those conversations, that are not able, willing and able, and even looking forward to difficult conversations. That is a requirement to be in my like inner circle. We got to have the difficult conversations. If they can't have a difficult conversation, if if they are not a safe person for me to be like, hey, this interaction, my internal dialogue is interpreting it like this. Can you clarify this for me? If they can't have that conversation, then I can't, it is harmful to have them close to me. So, as the advocate for my system, I'm not going to expose myself to that. I don't cut people out of my life, but I absolutely let them go, right? If they don't want to or aren't in a place that they can interact with me in like a healthy way. And I'm not saying that I require my friends to have their shit together. Just the opposite, actually. I don't require people to, I don't tone check my friends. I don't require people to like uh, have all of their shit together. They can fall apart, but we need to have a conversation as well. Do you see what I mean? Um, and so I do associate with people that can't necessarily have those conversations. I don't consider people disposable in any way. But again, if they, I don't fight to keep them in my life if they do not want to be there in a way that is healthy. That's, do you see the difference? I feel a difference. I have convinced myself that there is a difference. But it's all about that. If we can't communicate, how close can we really be? So, and that's okay to do that. And once you start setting those boundaries, once you start like uh holding that respect for your system and the exposure that you allow to your system, the kinds of relationships that you have are like night and day difference. Oh man, if you are having to invest a ton of emotional labor just to keep a friend, that's not like that's not a reciprocal, that's not a healthy relationship. It's going to tap you and burn you out. If you can't unmask and be around someone, that's not a super healthy environment for someone who is neurodivergent. You have to be able to unmask and be yourself, or you will burn out because it's so much effort to wear those social masks. And choosing a support group that you can actually do that with is really, really important. I see. Mystical. I remember you. I remember having a conversation with you about how much I love your name. Like every time I see you pop in, I'm like, yes, I so want to be Mystical so bad.
Yep, that's my actual name. I like to pronounce it Mystical, but I think it's pretty cool too. Yeah, let me find my words. I think I think the thing that I was talking about is like when I meet somebody who's, I'm just going to get rid of them, whatever, and like trying to find a comeback that isn't defensive but is thoughtful. And I think that is, and just listening to you guys talk about it is, oh, well, were you able to speak your needs and your boundaries clearly to that person before you were able to, or before you decided to cut them off? Because I think we all, deserve the respect to do that. Now, my best friend of the last 30 years, it was just a really strange occurrence, she had texted me that she had a scary reaction from a TV show, and I texted her back, "Oh, I was just watching a really sweet TV show." We had talked about this in the past. Don't text things that are emotionally charged. She was upset with me because I didn't realize that she was in a bad place through the text. I can't tell that. And then she wouldn't talk to me, and she wrote emails and just monologues of texts about everything that I've done wrong throughout the last 30 years. And I kept on saying to her, I will not do this to you through text. I need to talk to you. And she just wouldn't talk. Finally, she kind of threw it in my court. It's like, well, we can talk at this time and then we can do this. It's like, actually, that time isn't going to work for me. And then once again, it was my fault. I was the person who wasn't able to put things aside for her. So I think, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to process here. She had written me up on all of my previous flaws, but still had not been able to tell me what she needed. And I told her what I needed, and she couldn't meet me there. So I think I just need to be okay with letting her go. But it's hard. It's really hard to accept that. So, yeah, I thank you for all your support. And I think, oh, that's the other thing I wanted to say to that is in the last few months, I think it's been like 13 weeks or something that we haven't been talking. I think about her every day, but each day I feel like I get a little slice of me back. It's like I didn't realize, like, even though, you know, we used to talk fairly frequently, but even between our talks, I was constantly thinking, what does she need? You know, is there some way that I can help her, surprise her, or do something that she thinks would be appropriate? And now that she's not there, I'm realizing that I'm doing things for myself so much more than I was before. It's like, wow, I didn't even realize how toxic it was. And of course, I want to put some of that onus on me too. Like, I need to learn how to step away from focusing on other people so I can actually take care of myself. So, anyway, yeah, just wanted to reply to that. I think Amy and Kat probably had their hands up. I'm not sure who came first.
I think it's Kat. Go ahead, Kat.
I love this conversation. This is fabulous. I too have had to step away from several relationships in my life. One of them most recently was a couple of my really good friends, and so that's always hard when you have to let your friends go. I mean, I still consider them my friends in a way, but I just don't divert that energy toward that relationship right now. It's just too much for me to do. But yeah, I just noticed that as I was putting in so much effort and so much energy, so much love, so much of me into the relationship, I was not getting anywhere near that back. And it's not a terrible thing, but at the same point, you have to set some boundary for yourself that says, if you're going to invest nothing in this relationship, and it got to the point where I wasn't getting any phone calls, or they weren't replying to my texts, they weren't, putting any effort in to the relationship, that I'm like, well, do you need this relationship? Do you even want this relationship anymore? So that was the point where I'm like, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to leave it there and see if it floats. And it didn't. It just sank. And so that's the point where I'm like, okay, well, I guess that's that. I don't really consider myself cutting her off because I'm not the one that created that space. So I don't think it's necessarily on me to say I cut it off. I think I just let go, and I love that phrase that you came up with because that describes the way I feel about several of my relationships right now. I had to just let go and learn to focus more on myself right now. mini topic in that same thing. That was one thing that was my burning thing when you asked at the beginning, what's your burning topic of conversation? Um, I asked myself the question, and it's something I'm going to be diving into. What does my voice sound like? I'm really good at mimicking because I'm neurodivergent, and when I sing in voices of others, and that's going to be my topic. Is what I'm going to delve in. What does my voice sound like when I sing? Where does it come from? What does it sound like? I don't want to be other people. I want to be myself. So I'm going to be looking for my authentic voice in the coming future. And then I guess it was who was next?
Amy.
Amy.
Where am I going? Wrong button. So, I've never really understood the whole concept of cutting people off or shutting people out. I've always believed that people come into your life for a reason. I kind of feel like every single one of them, good, bad, or indifferent, are mirrors and reflect things back to us that we need to see about ourselves. I've always had a very varied array of acquaintances and relationships, etc. I've always believed that some people come into your life for a season, some people come into your life for a reason, and some people come to your life forever. And you never really know until, those people show you who they are. And when they do show you who they are, you better by God believe them, or you're likely to get hurt. Don't make excuses for them, etc., etc. Um, but just the same, um, I feel like every relationship has seasons. I have friends that in the summer we are inseparable. We are ride or die, go everywhere, hiking, swimming, fishing, the whole 9 yards. But then during the fall and spring, winter, we're kind of like, hey, I've got my life, you've got yours, and we kind of dissipate. But then as soon as the seasons warm up, we're like, what's up? Let's go. And we're just tight as can be. Just the same, I have friends, my winter friends, who love to cook and bake and knit and crochet. We nest up together in our homes and do all of the things. So do we all agree on everything? No. Do we have the same philosophies? No. We're all very, very different, but the people that I'm closest to are very, very accepting of all of our differences. And even like in my co-working relationships, there are people that I don't particularly like, but I can accept them for who they are and where they are and what they represent. And this is kind of a quirk about me, and it's really strange, and I don't say this out loud very often, but um, in this life, I have a lot of enemies, or a few enemies, I should say. However, it is the most bizarre concept to me because on the other side, we are like best friends. We're really tight and we run around and we love each other. Everything is great. But how they've chosen to present themselves and live the life that they live here, I often find rather comical. And I just kind of have to laugh. I accept it, but it's like, really? Could you not have found a more impossible way to live right now? So that's all I have to say.
And passing off to Petra. Hi, Petra.
Ready? So, one second. I was just wandering around my house putting laundry in the thing. And then I was like, I'm wandering back. Perfect timing. I just wanted to, one second. I need to blow my nose. I just wanted to like offer some nerdy wisdom about kind of relationships and dynamics and things that I think is kind of validating in these scenarios. It sounds to me, Ms. Mystical, that your friend, like sorry, my brain is like all over the place. I'm dealing with shingles right now, so I have a bit of a fever. So you're all gonna have to bear with me. My brain is like a little bit warm at the moment. But that there are dynamics that happen in friendships, especially when they've been long-standing, and like I think codependency is super normalized in friendships, and as is like this idea of like mind reading and whatnot. And I kind of put it in the chat that like, mind reading is actually like, when we think we can read people's minds, it's a trauma thing. Like we don't learn to do that from healthy interpersonal dynamics, because in healthy interpersonal dynamics, you communicate your needs, the other person communicate your needs, and then you kind of like come to a compromise, because ultimately as adults, like no other person is responsible for your needs because you're an adult. Like that's the crappy part. I think lots of people have really wounded inner children and operate from that place and are trying to get that inner child's needs met from other people instead of meeting that inner child's needs themselves. And that can really cause these dysfunctional and like painful patterns in friendships. And I know that I've been a part of those. Like I've been on both sides of those equations. And often I have been the person that has people pleased myself into so much resentment that I implode the friendship over something that I could have communicated about, but I violated my own boundaries so many times that like the tab is too high. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's like I'm already so much in, like I don't like using capitalist terms, but it's like that I'm already so much in debt in this relationship because I've actually self-abandoned by people pleasing so many times that I don't know how to repair this, because it's not what it is in front of me, it's actually all of the other times before. And so I think that sometimes that is a way that people and relationships, and it sounds like maybe that's part of what happened with your friend, but it also isn't really fair, because it sounds like she was using some like avoidant tactics, or kind of like there's like, I shouldn't say tactics, that sounds like really like menacing, but like strategies or like anxious strategies. And these are attachment styles. And like, anxiously attached people are like, they want closeness and they want intimacy, but often like they will complain a lot, or like have lots of not complain a lot, they will have lots of complaints, they'll have lots of issues, and it's not because they don't want to be close, it's because they do want to be close, but they always feel uncertain in the bond, and they've never learned how to like soothe themselves, and so they use the other person to soothe their own distress. And the truth of the matter is like that's because when they were a child, that distress wasn't soothed. And so I have compassion for both people on sides of these things, but I think it's really unfortunate when those dynamics play out and you're like, you can't be that person's caregiver, right? Like you can't. It's something that I've had to explain in closer friendships that I'm willing to work on, where someone has those tendencies. Like with my husband, for instance, I have to like reiterate very often to him, like, hey, like, I can't soothe your inner child in this. I can do these things. These are available to me within like what is emotionally healthy in the scenario. But like, this is where I like repeat them out very often, like this is where you need to learn how to comfort yourself and be compassionate with yourself, you know. Sorry, my dog is like being the drama in the background. She's groaning and moaning. I don't know why. She's just like, oh, you're okay. It's like, I require tummy scratches. Now you can go back to talking. But it's still really painful, and it sounds like you're grieving this friendship, which is so fair. And I mean, I've had those things happen to me, or like, or been like, you know, try to retrofit friendships where I'm healing and I'm continuing to do so, and this person's on a different journey, and I think that that's fine as long as you keep the communication open. And where like I will try to like bring up things we need to talk about, or I'll institute a boundary. And for me, like, I think my perspective on boundaries, and I've heard this on TikTok too, where it's like boundaries aren't like things I give to other people. They're things that I'm like, if you do this, I'm going to do this. Like, if you text me after 10 p.m., I'm asleep. So I'm not going to answer, and you're going to have to wait. Or if you swear at me in a conversation, I'm going to leave the conversation. And when you're more calm and settled, we can try again. You know, those are boundaries. And I think lots of times the boundary discourse has gotten kind of contorted by a lot of like codependency, anxious attachment stuff, and just like the controlling that comes from those things, where people will be like, my boundaries are you have to behave this way. And the thing is that like, it's someone trying to control your behavior to soothe their own distress actually doesn't help them at all. And saying no to that stuff is really healthy, to be like, I mean, you can ask me to show up that way and I can try, but also like, I'm a human, I'm gonna fuck that up. And like, I've said that to people where I'm like, I don't read minds. If you feel something, if something happens, you have to tell me. I will not guess. I refuse to. And anytime I also explicitly state to people, I'm like, anytime I do read minds, it's a trauma response. And that means that I'm actually feeling really distressed or uncertain in the friendship. And so that is usually a really not healthy sign or a safe sign. Like, I'm not in a safe place when that's happening. And so that will be like, when I try to read people's minds, it's usually like kind of this internal like alarm bell of like, ooh, what have I been not paying attention to? Because this is not good for me. This is childhood, and I don't want to play out childhood patterns in my adult relationships. I'm trying to like heal those things by unpatterning them. I don't know if that makes any sense. But and you know, I've communicated those things to people, and people at the beginning will be like, yeah, that all sounds great. And then shit will like hit the fan and fall apart, because like intellectually they're with me, but in an emotional or embodied kind of way, they might not be where I am, and they might not have the skills to do healthy conflict, to communicate when they're distressed, or to whatever. And I've had to really learn that like, that isn't about me. And it sucks that your friend kind of bombarded you with like this litany of wrongs. It's not fair. And I just want to say that like, that's another thing with people. Like, I don't think that there's like a, you can't talk about this if it happened 10 years ago thing, because like we all heal at different paces, and 10 years ago it might have been fine because I was in a different place, but now I might be in a different place and be like, hey, that actually wasn't okay. But there's a difference between bringing that up and being like, I want to talk about this incident that happened 10 years ago. And at the moment I thought I was okay, but actually I was having these feelings and wasn't safe to feel them. So I'd like to unpack it and kind of work through it and come up with a way that we can avoid that situation in the future. And that, but that's different, right? And I think when someone needs you to be their perfect parent, and like that's very much sounds like what was happening with your friend, and I've been in that experience. I've been a lot of people's perfect moms and then disappointed them horribly because I'm not a mother and I have a really emotionally distant mother. And so like when people are like, it's happened in my relationships with other women. Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, how did I get here? Like, I had a crappy mom. I don't even understand. This is really hard. What? I'm so confused. But I think it's that, like, you know, have a lot of water in my chart. I have lots of Cancer placements. I'm very maternal, but I also am like, have had lots of times where I'm like, I'm deeply fucked up from my childhood and I'm trying my best and I'm just a person. And I think the thing is that, like, when people project all their wounds onto you, or they're wounding, like, that wounded energy, they don't see you, right? Like, this friendship where you're like, I feel like I'm getting more myself, that is, I think that is, like, some of those things relate to codependency from my perspective, is that, like, we do, in that enmeshment, we, like, lose who we are because we're so focused on, like, how do I make them happy so that I'm safe. So, like, super valid. That's a super valid thing, and that's a strategy that you probably employed many times in your life. I think any person who's been, like, I think any human being, but specifically if you've been socialized to perform femininity under patriarchy, like, people pleasing is, like, that's the way. Like, that is the codependency sauce is, like, it's deep, because that's how we're, like, socialized to seek safety in situations, because we're not supposed to be like the masculine and, like, be, like, harangue it or be strong, like, whatever, you know, all those tropes that are totally hogwash in my mind. But there was one more piece that I wanted to say about my febrile brain, is being like, we are on the garden path and now we are lost. So what I'll just close with is that these friendship breakups can be really painful, but they also can be really liberating. And I think the piece where you were like, when people talk about cutting people off and, like, you want to find something to say to them, I love what you came up with, the question of, like, have you talked to them? Because I think that that's so important in our society. So many times people are like, no, they don't deserve it. Well, it's like, something I've learned from somatics is when people avoid conflict, is because they don't, in their body, have the capacity to hold the conflict. And so they avoid it. And that's fair, because conflict is hard. You have to hold, like, I love myself and this is what I need. I care about this person and I love them and this is what they need. How do we come? Like, there's a lot of skills in that. I totally get why, like, so many people don't have it, because we have, like, an epidemic of emotional immaturity, because I've talked about this before, like, Victorian parenting, boomer parent, like, the whole shebang. Like, it's ubiquitous, like, it's all over society. But I also think that it is okay to like, communicate that it's almost like a way of an affirmation. Like, I will speak into relationships, like, what I want from them. And maybe that relationship falls apart, but at least I use my voice in service of, like, where I'm headed. Does that make sense? And so I think that I want to say this with all respect to your ex-friend, is that I think you deserve better. And I think you deserve people who are willing to work with you and also not, like, browbeat you with 30 years of stuff that they didn't tell you fucked up, when they can't even tell you what they need or be in conflict with you. And something that I'm learning is that, and I had to learn this a lot of times, and I learned it from, like, doing it myself, is that, like, if I want to keep a relationship, I'll fight for it. And the people that I've let go of because they weren't, like, I couldn't. And sometimes the universe is weird. It just, like, things disintegrate because it's supposed to disintegrate, because you're like, you aren't that person anymore. And it's like, it's almost like an echo of who you used to be. And so you're letting it go. And who knows, maybe, like, in 5-10 years, you two will be in different places and something can happen. But as it sits right now, I always look at, like, I don't think this person can meet me where I'm at. And that it's probably too painful for both of us to try to keep going at it. But the thing I really love about how I've learned to embrace conflict is to be like, and I'm not talking, like, embrace conflict, like, get in fights with people all the time, but, like, embrace, like, like, the willingness to be in disagreement, which I was not really good at before, and be like, this is kind of fucked up and I don't like it and I feel dysregulated and I'm kind of scared, but I want to not lose this person. And if it comes to the point of I'm going to lose them, or I'm going to speak my truth and it's going to maybe be a little messy, but I know I can apologize if I say some fuck shit. That's kind of where I land, because it's but some people can't do that. They don't know how. They may not know how to apologize if they say fuck shit. And they also don't even know how to not make the current conflict about everything that's happened before or their entire childhood, all these other things that are unrelated. And sometimes it sucks, but I think I've had to trust other people when they're communicating to me that they don't have the capacity for the conflict and the conversation that I want to have with them. I might be I want this to be okay, but they're I don't got this, and I'm giving you all these signs and signals, not in a social mores, a social cues way, but I'm communicating no, the I feel weird putting it into perspective with yours, your situation, but I don't have a different example and my brain is too all over the place to find one of my own. But the laundry list or whatever, it's that's kind of a no, right? That's that's she's putting up a wall. That sound what it sounded like to me. And I could be totally wrong. And anytime I share things like this, if I get stuff wrong where you're I don't like that doesn't land right, you're totally allowed to be hey, Petra, I don't like that. That's fucked up. That doesn't jive. Because I'm not you. I don't know exactly how it is. I can kind of only see what's been discussed and kind of take from my own experience or the book knowledge that I have. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end it there because my brain is just and I'm gonna look at who I'm gonna try this because I have not been able to do this yet. I think it's Jen Marie is next. Yes. So I'll hand it over to her. Thanks, guys.
I love this conversation so much. This is a good one. And it relationships are hard, especially when our beginnings, look at how we were taught to navigate relationships as children. We weren't given a whole lot of really healthy tools. And so now as adults, we're having to learn kind of in hindsight and kind of do a lot of that deconstruction work before we can really move forward in this healthy way. And I something that's been coming up recently for me in some of the catalysts in my own life and in my own relationships is that unconfirmed interpretations of somebody else's intentions are not safe in a traumatized mind, right? So, meaning if you have relationship trauma, if you have a history of abuse, if you have a history of people being really shitty to you, if you're developing friendships with people, new friendships, and they do something or say something that kind of is that reminds me of this person or this experience. If you don't confirm their intentions, what ends up happening is you start telling yourself stories, and your path will divert, your reality will divert from your friend, this person that you're trying to get to know, because you have projected an interpretation of their intention that might not necessarily be real to them, right? It's very real to you. You're very much experiencing it because your mind is telling you these things. But until you have cultivated a relationship with your mind and that compassion with yourself and understanding that uh, your trauma can be projected onto these new relationships through that intention thing, that um oh, my brain just went sideways, all the way sideways with that. But it's dangerous. It's not a healthy friendship dynamic. And but the thing is that clarification, that confirmation that need you to uh I glanced over and read Petra's thing over here. It takes bravery to confirm intentions, especially if you have relationship or social trauma, right? Because what you're doing is your system, your brain's in fight or flight because you think it's dangerous because that's what you've experienced before. And so when you talk to this person, right, and you're like, hey, this happened and this is how I interpreted that, your intention, can you clarify? That's a really difficult thing to do. And but it's required for those close relationships, right? You can't learn how to you can't trust someone until you actually know their intentions, until you can accurately predict their intentions, right? And that takes those conversations of clarifying and really getting to know someone and communicating with them. So if a relationship is valuable to you, you like be brave. It's worth it. Your relationship will be so much closer, or you won't be wasting your time with someone whose intentions are not aligned with like yours, right? So those conversations are, you being a good advocate for your system in your life. Uh, as difficult as they are, they get easier the more you do it. It's one of those like fun little neural pathway things. Here's the other kind of side to this. I can't not touch on the opportunity for shadow work when you experience these kinds of relationship dynamics. So if you are having uh, an experience where someone's projecting onto you, right? And it's like digging at you or poking, right? It wouldn't poke if there wasn't something there. And so getting into the habit of asking yourself when you get poked like that is, how am I doing this to myself or to others? How am I doing this to myself or to others? A lot of times, like with the not having healthy boundaries or whatever, someone requiring you to be able to read their mind, right? How are you not showing up for yourself and meeting your own needs, anticipating your own needs, right? If you're expecting someone else to do that, like, right? Do you see how it's kind of twisty, but it really helps you kind of uh, put good use to that catalyst that you're experiencing and helping you get kind of a well-rounded experience there. What was the other thing that I wanted to touch on? I've been keeping notes because my brain. Yeah, you guys. Oh, here's the other thing, right? It is incredibly painful when someone is more committed to their interpretation of your intentions than clarification of your intentions. Like that is painful. And it takes practice in just accepting that they're allowed to have their own interpretations of things. They're allowed to navigate their life like that. But you're also allowed to, again, have those healthy boundaries and to be like, this isn't, uh, this isn't who I am. And you don't have to engage with that. You don't have to engage as their projection either. So does Bright and Dark have a physical shadow workbook? Actually, we are launching uh, a monthly workbook. Every month has its own workbook. So it's very exciting. It's happening in October. But that's one of the big things. We wrote a book that caters to neurodivergent minds. So that if you're curious, good. Oh, hi, Julie. I didn't see you sneak in here. Does anyone else have? We've got lots of time. I didn't even finish that sentence. Does anyone else have anything else that they want to talk about or want to riff off of? Mystical. Go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to say thanks a lot. And I also feel like there's a part of me that just kind of wants to um, push it aside. Let's just sweep it on the rug for a little while and talk about how awesome autumn is. And how much I'm looking forward to the leaves changing and putting on a sweater and the crisp air. And I'm just really curious what everybody's traditions are. But if you want to keep on talking about it, we can. But I'm also curious about the fun, wonderful things that are going to be happening soon.
I'll be nice and not poke at you about being uncomfortable, being the center of attention in a group. That's okay. Everybody does that. Everybody that starts a conversation, like for the first time, that goes on for a long time, a lot of times they apologize. I'm sorry for taking up all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then we all get the chance to be like, no, it's cool. We're into it. But we can switch subjects. The man, I've talked about this so much. I've had meetings the last like 3 days straight between like the Spellcrafters Guild and the like Hearth Keepers and everything. And a lot of what we've been talking about is this like change of the season and how to, ooh, I'm the mod. I am admitting. There we go. And multitasking and trying to stay on track, which is fun. And I've actually been spending a lot of time outside. The change in the season is definitely apparent up in Alaska. The leaves are starting to turn. The feel is different. In Alaska, we're very on top of the seasons because it's a ticking clock of how much time you have left until the snow flies, and then you're just like everything stops for like 6-8 months, right? Um, but I've been doing this practice of co-regulating with trees, right? If you haven't done it, it's where like the whole hug a tree comes from. There's the energetic field of trees, and our energetic field does this co-regulation thing. We can actually kind of the word harmonize. We can like harmonize with them, and it helps us uh, connect. It's hard to describe, but so I've been doing that a lot, just sitting and breathing and allowing myself to kind of reach out to the trees. And this is my first year really doing that intentionally. Like I've been talking to trees for years, but this is the first time that I've been so involved and highly recommend it, especially since they're now starting to do that shedding of what no longer serves them and going into that their internal phase, going into the hibernation, which is what we are also doing as humans. And so it feels really good to do that. If you guys are into it, totally suggest hugging a tree. But uh I am also working on I want to start a tradition of honoring my home and the relationship I have with my home at the autumnal equinox to prepare for the the partnership that is involved over the winter time, like because my home literally keeps me alive. But that's part of what I'm incorporating for my uh, I keep saying my brain says autumnal convergence, and so that's what that pause is every time I say autumnal equinox is because I'm trying to say the right thing. Does anyone else want to share what they're thinking about as far as their tradition? I also start veiling at the autumnal equinox, and I cover the crown of my head to honor my system's inward turn over the winter time. And so as it gets dark here in Alaska and cold here in Alaska, I start wearing beanies and hoods and just making sure that the crown of my head is covered. Uh, it's just like an energetic acknowledgement that this is an internal part of my cycle instead of being like open to external influence. So, ta-da! Anyone else want to share? Go ahead, Alicia.
I feel like if I can pop on. Sorry if it's too windy. I'll see if I can come over where it's not quite as bad. And keep a connection. I was just thinking, here, I'll put my hand down too. I really loved what you said about how did you put it? About being too insecure in knowing what people are saying, in not making it feel safe. However you put that, I think I wrote it down the right way, but that hit me really hard. This week I walked into work and someone had written a note on our fridge. So right as you walk in, the first thing you see was this note. And the first thing it did was hit me like a punch to the gut. I was like, crap, does that mean I did something wrong? Did I do, and it was like this uplifting, inspiring, like we're a team, not because we have to work together, but because we respect each other. And I was like, so are they saying that I'm not respecting somebody? Did I do something wrong? Did I do this? And I like, you know what, forget this. So I texted the person I thought who wrote it. And I said, hey, did you write this? And she says, yes, I did. I said, okay. And because I know that person, I knew that her intentions were meaning as a team lifting up. And I said, sorry, I kind of wigged out. I know too many passive aggressive people. And I just left it at that. And I was like, okay. And then the next person who came in, she's like, oh, that's a great little song. I love it. I'm like, okay, yeah, this is good. No one's trying to say I'm not doing something. No one's trying to tell me I'm not good enough. And that was my initial reaction. And I was like, why was that my initial reaction? And then I quickly realized it's because I haven't been in enough safe spaces. And as much as that this feels like a much safer space, I just came out of working from a space that wasn't. So I'm cutting myself the slack I need. And I immediately contacted the person and says, hey, was this yours? And she says, yes. I'm like, okay. I knew her intentions would be good. So I was good there. So when you said that really hit me. And then the other thing is, I really love connecting with trees. And it started in Oregon. There was a couple of trees that I was able to make some fantastic connections with and some experiences with. And it's been a struggle out here to find trees who are open and receptive to that. And I actually happen to have one on my property. But it's a fruit tree, which was a new experience for me. Most of them have been a type of pine. So the fruit tree was an interesting one. But I finally found one. And I think it's more like it's waking up. Because the more I've gone there and kind of sat with it and had energetic exchanges, the more it's been more receptive to it and open to it, and I can feel it more. But anyway, just thought I'd share those little tidbits because it's fun.
Go ahead, Bridget.
I was just wondering, as we're talking about all this autumnal stuff, and we're getting into like holiday season and people cooking for each other, I've always been curious. I've never tried it, but people who do like kitchen witch type stuff, does anybody want to share sort of any stories that they have done about making foods or drinks with intentions or kitchen witch type traditions that they have? Ooh, yes, lots of responses.
Yeah, I lowered my hand real quick. Me first, Ben. My mom is a chef, and so I've been cooking since I could stand on a chair and reach the stove. Uh, and she's a witch, and so she taught me long form spell work through growing our food as children and processing the food, canning and things like that. And she had very specific ways that she handled things. And as she was cutting things and as she was processing things, it was a very intentional process. I love kitchen witchcraft. I love long form spells that include kitchen witchery, and the harvest season is one of the oh man, it's one of my favorite seasons in like witchcraft communities because there's so many of us that do this kind of work. We had witches that would put down mead uh, and charge it all year long to bring to big gatherings. And then the whole community would have this. We had all kinds of uh, that kind of thing. You can do so much with food and intention and with intention like that. Anytime, like even with my dog's food, right? I could just feed them kibble and just do that. No, that's not true because Rufio refuses to eat kibble. But because Rufio refused to eat kibble, I started to make uh like additions to put in their food. Like I call it dog stew, but that sounds really bad when I explain it like that. It's a stew for my dogs, not a stew made of dog. But I actually, when I prepare their meals and stir it up, I'm stirring intention and love and all of those things, uh, and then give it to them. That's everything that I put into it, they receive. And it's a powerful, amazing, wonderful thing. Should I do a workshop on kitchen witchcraft? I haven't really done that um, yet. We did it the convergences we've done. We did one at the autumnal convergence last year, but that would be fun. We could make stuff. Go ahead, Ben.
Okay. Actually, where you left off is kind of like one of my favorite mundane witchcrafts that I do like on the daily, which is stirring intention into my morning cup of coffee, which I only started doing, come 2020 when a TikTok came across my page and said, "Have you ever thought to do this?" And I said, "What? No, I haven't ever thought to do that." And well, you know what? That's silly because that is the easiest way to make your day better, right? Is to put your own intention of this is gonna be a great day into your morning cup. Anyway. Um, Kitchen witchery is my favorite because it takes absolutely no effort except making the food you're making. The expression of "I made it with love," right? That's kitchen witchery. That expression in and of itself is like the encapsulation of kitchen witchery. I made it with love. You're putting an intention into it. You're thinking of that person while you're making that thing, even if you are making soup and you're thinking to yourself, "Gosh, this is going to be a delicious soup." You are literally enchanting that soup to be delicious. Yay. You love kitchen witchery. I never thought of it that way until my later 20s, but in high school, when I was in the theater department, we would do a concessions, and like everybody in the cast would make something to bring in to sell for the concessions, whatever. And I always did chocolate chip cookies, except that I am a tryhard. So like I was making like 11 dozen cookies at home in my mom's oven. Um, and never thinking to myself that I was just pouring energy into 11 dozen cookies all at once. Um, and now I'll do that, but I do it for like a Christmas present for my family, um, maybe close friends, with knowing now that like taking the time, especially because I don't really like to use like hand mixers or stand mixers. Like I prefer to do everything like either by hand or with a spatula, right? Obviously washing my hands. That's disgusting. But that the skin contact with the cookie dough for me is important because it's about transferring that energy like directly to the cookies. Um, I don't know. Yeah, kitchen witchery. It's the like best way to get your foot in the door into the witchcraft world. Corey, you are next.
So I also love kitchen witchery. I'm an herbalist, so one of the way I really incorporated into this time of year is that I make extracts. So I have to start them far in advance. Like my vanilla is a year to a year and a half old. Every week I have to shake them. Every time I'm doing that, I am infusing magic into them. So they are like long-term spells that I then use in my holiday baking or when I'm making things for other people. And I am pouring that intention into the items that I am making. And I'm thinking back about all the times that I shook those extracts and thought about the intention that I was putting in them and just adding them. So usually I do cinnamon, vanilla, lemon, sometimes orange. So I have a whole group of them. And anytime I need to add something, I use these long-term extracts that I have just been every week adding, layers upon layers of spell work into that extract. So I just wanted to share that, as that's a way that I can incorporate that magical practice into my life, especially during the holiday season. And I don't know who's next. So whoever's next.
That would be me. That would be me. I love this conversation so much. The only thing that I'm like bummed about this conversation is that we don't have a whole lot. We have 30 minutes left, and that's not a lot of time. But another thing that my mom does or got me doing also, when I'm cooking, I have a candle in the kitchen specifically for kitchen witchery stuff. Or uh, bleh. I grew up always having a candle in the kitchen, and my mom would light the candle, and then she would make dinner. And then when dinner was made and the dishes were done and everything, she would put out the candle. It was this whole thing. And yeah, a kitchen candle, it can be something as simple as that. And you guys know that I love candle magic. I love that, especially like working candles, dressing a pillar candle for a specific intention and then using that candle over and over again. uh, a kitchen candle is like a really cool way to kind of get started on that. It's a way for you to like again make that declaration to yourself and to everything else, that you are doing a working, that you are being intentional, and uh, yeah, so cool. And Corey, I the reason I ask that is that when I hear that a witch is passionate about something like extractions and does what you do, that understands the energetic exchange that happens when you are doing things like revisiting your jars and shaking them, and those are the kind of like that's the kind of shit that I personally uh, incorporate into my practice. I love building tradesies relationships with witches that do that kind of stuff, because we all have different things that we're super into. And the cool thing about a community of witches is that we don't have to be super great at everything. Uh, we can specialize in things and then share them with each other. And so yeah, like in my head, I would love to get to the point where we have a directory of like all of the witches that do this kind of stuff, so that we can add them to our practice, right? uh Ta-da. Corey, did you still have your hand up from before, or are you getting back into it?
No, it's just me. not paying attention. So I will take that away. Thank you.
You don't have to pay attention. There's plenty of us to help. Go team. All right, Miss Stickle, go ahead. You are muted.
I was just saying I'm talking a lot today. My husband's been gone, so I've had the whole house to myself for a week, and like this has been quiet. It's nice to talk to you guys. I wanted to say, let's see, like I've always wanted to be more of a kitchen witch, and I'm listening to this and I'm thinking about what I've done myself and like and showing and thinking about where I lack putting intentions into different things. And then what you just said recently about how each witch has their different gift. I was like, oh yeah, I do have my own gift, and it's not necessarily in the kitchen. I mean, I love cooking, and I just feel like I could put more magic into it. But I wanted to share my gift, which is I'm a body worker, and recently I moved from California to Michigan. And I've been noticing there's like a different pattern in the bodies here that I haven't noticed in California. And I'm noticing, I think what it is, and let me see if some of you guys identify with this, but people's hips are unusually tight in Michigan. And I think it's because they're used to like putting their center of gravity right over their feet when it's icy so they don't fall. And then in the summertime they kind of the hips kind of blossom and they don't know what to do. So I was just identifying with like that's kind of my witchy skill is like I'm able to look into bodies and move them around and see where things are changing, and the autumnal like transition, I'm starting to notice that in bodies as well, just like people starting to even like pack on a little bit more cushion for the warmth of the winter. It's like we're becoming bears and hibernating sort of thing. Lots of people bringing in kitchen treats and baked goods, and it's really sweet. That's something I didn't get in California either. Like all my clients bringing me cookies and bread and canned goods and pickles. And there's one more thing I wanted to share. I don't do much gardening and I want to learn. But I bought a couple of herbs, and there was a little volunteer zucchini in my sage herbs this year. And I swear to God, yesterday I did not have a zucchini, and today I have like a 12-inch zucchini in my backyard. But talking about magic. Okay, I'm going away now.
Go ahead, Petra.
I love that about the surprise zucchini. That was fun. It was like, also this is hilarious because on my phone I'm like a banner. I'm like, I can see my nose and my mouth. That's it. Anyway, I just wanted to offer like I think kitchen witchcraft was like kitchen witchery is like maybe the first thing that I learned because I learned to like cook when I was really young. I was like little, and when I say little, I was like 6, 7, somewhere in there. I was wee, like I'm only 5'1", 5'2" now, so like little me was much littler. And I like learned how to make tomato soup, but I was like, I want to make it special, and so I added like shell pasta and I added basil and thyme. I was like, just going for it. But what I wanted to say was the thing that I really like about kitchen witchery, one, I mean, is the food at the end. That's always a good time. But also the like kind of flow state when you're cooking, like you kind of get in a groove and you're like, especially when you've like made a meal before, you're like, okay, like I do this part first, and I do that, and then I do this gets added, and I chop this, and it's just like is a really neat way to experience flow. And that is something that I know we talk about here lots. And so I wanted to offer that. That is one of my favorite ways to do that. Like I do walks and like yoga and other things that are kind of flow state stuff as well. But kitchen witchery is one of those things where it's the intention piece it makes a really big difference. And there's something too about like that can feel really supportive about like cooking for yourself and nourishing your body and selecting ingredients and things like that that feel good and taste good. And I don't know, I grew up with my mom was not a good cook. And my dad was, but because of their dynamics, he was not allowed to cook because we liked his cooking more. There was a lot of insecurity there. And so it's something that feels really nourishing and supportive for my inner child too, to like make good food that like tastes really good and I want to eat it, and it's not just like I'm eating this because if I don't eat it I won't survive, which was a lot of my childhood, was just like I didn't even know if I had sensory issues with food because I was just hungry. And so I wanted to offer the flow state piece and just kind of those reflections on things. And in line with what Corey said too, there's lots of times where like I will like look into maybe like seasonal or like energetically aligned like herbs, and then I'll kind of pick a meal around those things. Like, and Google is great for this, being like, oh, okay, like I kind of want to use some more like protective herbs. That's kind of how I'm feeling. What are they? I'll do some research around that, and then I'll be like, okay, chicken made with these things, or like whatever. Like pick what's in the fridge. And so I just also wanted to offer that these are not all things that you have to like instinctually know how to do. You can nerd your way through them too, and use the internet to support you in your endeavors. And so I know sometimes people can feel like kitchen witchery is, if you've been savvy in the kitchen, or you don't feel super comfortable, or someone wasn't kind to you about being in the kitchen or whatever, whatever it might be, it can be hard for people. But I just wanted to offer those things to empower people if that's something that they're interested in. That is all. And I don't know who is next, if anyone is. It is eyes the end. So ta-da! Oh, Bridget. There you go.
I just want to say thank you to all of you. This was all super helpful.
I love SASS. It has been, I just realized, okay, so I just realized that this is like one of the first times that, like, I think we have one hearthkeeper here with us. Usually we have a whole bunch of them. And the reason I'm pointing that out is like a lot of you don't necessarily know why we started SASS Mass and kind of what this was born of. And I'm getting kind of like pinged to share that with you guys, that back when, so I'd spent a good almost 10 years living and functioning and high priestessing within an underground witchcraft community. And we used to, how I met a lot of my mentors is we would have these big gatherings several times a year where we would all come together and for like several days out in the woods or at like someone's house or whatever. And we would sit around a fire and just talk, just like this. And I learned so much just listening to other witches' experiences and hearing their perspectives on magic and life and uh, how it all comes together. I learned to really appreciate the diversity that can be present in a magical community. And so, and I miss that. I miss being able to just have those conversations and just to see what, I guess someone say, see what spirit brings up, and giving space that isn't structured and doesn't have a like set topic. We allow whatever comes up in the present moment to come up. And I think that there's a lot of magic there. And I think that as witches, we need to have that space, um, because it's in that space, every time we come to that like present space and allow ourselves to turn inward or allow ourselves to reach out and um, ask what needs to be talked about, when we get in the practice of doing that and collectively honoring the intuitive flow of conversation, I really truly feel that that's where magic is. And we get more powerful as practitioners because we're choosing to lean in, and we're choosing to connect, and we're choosing to sincerely um, receive other people's perspectives and be able to authentically show up for ourselves and our experience. And so, thank you. Every SASS is different depending on who is able to show up. And I love that. All of you guys are adding to this space and helping to create this space. So big thank you. Uh, on that note, does anyone have anything else that's coming up for them? We still have a good like 15 minutes. And since I'm modding today, like we can do what we want. So if we do like catch on to Petra, I love you. If we do catch on to something, like I'm not breaking any rules if we go over this time. Our time limits are so that we don't take advantage of our mods and assume their schedule. But yay, we can do what we want. All right, go ahead, Petra.
I just wanted to, I also love that you're like, it's kind of the like, I got that phrase, the like, while the parents are away, the kids will play, or whatever, or the mice will play. There's like that, I can't think of it actually now, but it made me think of that. It just was funny. I love that energy. I think it's awesome. But I also am so grateful to the mods, and I like, schedules are important, but I wanted to just ask, I'm really exhausted. I'm like in this like almost pre-burnout place. And our landlord is like, not like, he is actually in fact listing our house, and came and did a walkthrough, and then is trying to pull some shady crap with like trying to say that we're breaking our lease by like not having dogs and not having the walls cleaned. And I was just like, I have shingles, and you gave us 24 hours notice before you walked through our house with realtors, and I told you I've been sick all summer and that I have shingles right now. Like, I warned you that it wasn't clean, and it wasn't going to be clean, because like I'm not scrubbing walls with 24 hours notice. Like anyway. And now he's just trying to be a butt and use paperwork against me, which is fine because I am hyperlexic and can read documents and know that he doesn't have anything to stand on. But we're trying to like do the cleaning thing because we also just like, we're trying to get out of this place and hopefully get like a mortgage for like a super fixer upper where it's like $700 a month for the mortgage or something like that. We're paying way too much. We're paying someone else's mortgage and it's not good. But I'm in this like place of like, I'm extremely tired. And so it made me think about like, not just rest, but like, because like that's obviously important. I'm taking breaks and doing the things. It's been an emotional weekend. It's brought up a lot of stuff for both my husband and I. We've just had some crappy situations where people just, instead of communicating clearly, people trying to strong arm stuff. And I'm like, hey, we're all adults here. Like, what's going on? But what I wanted to bring up was like, what are ways that everybody like kind of refills their cup, because I think that those are different things from like, you know, like rest is one thing. I'm like, I know I need physical rest and like other things, and I know what my things are, but I would love to hear other people's, like, how do you, when you're feeling depleted, how do you restore yourself? What kinds of different ways in being depleted required different ways of restoration for you? Like for me, like, for instance, in this scenario, I'm like, okay, I know my body is tired and it's going to be sore because I'm going to be using a lot. So I'm going to be doing Epsom salt baths. I'm going to be doing energy work on myself, the process, all the shit that's coming up with all of this, giving myself space to like cry or feel the feelings or to like do somatic things, because it's very much one of those experiences where it's like someone doesn't know how to communicate, and so instead they're behaving in a way that's not very emotionally mature, like my landlord. And so there's like that shame of like, oh, like they're not holding their own shame of not knowing how to communicate, and so it's trying to like energetically come at both my husband and I, and I'm like, I'm doing work against that, because I'm like, this is not my responsibility. That you can't just, you have to like try to lie to us and like use the tenancy act against us. That's weird. Anyway, but it would just made me think of those things. And I think that those, especially in a season like fall where like school starts and, you know, seasons are changing, and that energetically can have kind of consequence. It just made me think of like, hey, this might be relevant also to other people. So yeah, I'll bring that into the conversation. And I need to look at this thing. And I think Jenry, you are next, and then it's Bridget, or maybe it's Bridget. I don't know.
I love this topic. I love this topic for, of course, a lot of reasons, but I've been recovering from autistic burnout since March, or what is pathologized as autistic burnout. Intense, super intense, by the way, like it's no joke. But I had to learn what you're just talking about, Petra. I had to learn not only about having healthier boundaries as far as like um, my physical body was concerned, of like actually getting rest and paying attention to sleep and eating uh in a way that supported my body in the way that my body needed, all of those things. But the other side of this is that um that you're a fucking witch. There's an energetic aspect that also needs to be regulated, right? And were you in here when I was talking about hugging trees? Because this is like, if you haven't gone down that rabbit hole of the co-regulation with trees, I bet you could probably Google that. It is. Were you here when I was talking about that earlier, Petra?
And I have part of my energy work practice is also a land practice. So not just like I will go and like I use the sky a lot, and we have like a big pine tree in our kind of in our neighbor's front yard, but it's like straddling both of our front yards. And he, like, I want to say I think it's he and I hang out a lot. And just for the like orienting of like looking at him and the other trees and the horizon, and just like kind of using that as a way to like ground myself in reality. I also do lots of stuff where I'll like just stand in the dirt barefoot. That's always a good like kind of, not in winter because I'm in Canada, but this time of year it's like, at least if you do it in the afternoon. In the morning it's too chilly. but those things I find really helpful. I've been thinking about like maybe going down to the river and doing some stuff there, just to kind of be in the whole forest, and kind of, I know that like for me, I've built, as part of my land practice, I've built like offerings as well into those things, as kind of on is that the right word? Auspicious times. Like leaving, and then like I talk to Indigenous friends of mine who live here about like how do they provide offerings if they were willing to teach me, because I wanted to like offer things to the land as the land has been receiving offerings for hundreds of years, thousands really. And so I do those things on certain times when I feel, or it's not gonna sound crazy here, or when I hear as part of my land practice that that's like what needs to be done. So like I'll offer tobacco or other things like based on that kind of more frequent land practice that I have as part of my energy work practice. Yeah.
So as soon as you started talking, I was immediately like pinged about specifically harmonizing your energy field with a tree, specifically, just like what we were talking about earlier. And I think you understand what I mean by that. And it's not necessarily, I mean, I absolutely offerings, absolutely, but that's a different practice than this like joining fields. It's I don't know how to explain it more than that. I can explain like the practice that is kind of getting pinged. And I imagine again that you already do this because it wouldn't be so highlighted if you didn't already know this, right? And so it's literally the practice of like sitting at the base of the tree and closing your eyes and taking that deep breath and relaxing like into the tree and removing any resistance you have within you to breathing and connecting with the tree specifically and allowing that space. So no, you're not timelined, you're not doing anything other than just being absolutely present with the tree. And because my fucking neurodivergent brain needs something to hook to, it's even better when you're by a river because of the sound of the river drowns out the sound of the electric lines. It drowns out the sound of the traffic, and it drowns out the sound of like all of the network of electricity and all of that stuff. You're sensitive to that. But when you get lost in the river, or you get lost in the breeze, in the leaves, that's the shit that feeds your fills your cup. That's the shit that empties the overstimulation cup. You know what I mean? There's that balance that comes there. And it feels so good because it's reminding you of what is real, right? Because what is real is that like present moment, that everything that you're experiencing, the catalyst that you're experiencing is, I mean, it's just there, right? It is a lot. It's stressful. It's all of these things. And you're allowed to feel those emotions, and you're allowed to process, and you're allowed to like go with the flow and everything. But you reminding yourself that you'll have the information you need when you need it, period. It's going to come to you. You'll know when action needs to happen. You always have. You will know, and trusting in that. And being present with your body, being an advocate, right? Your system's like, chill the fuck out, motherfucker. Let's rest. Let's breathe. Your landlord being shitty is like, you're right, that has nothing to do with you. Has nothing to do with you. And man, this is absolutely in your flow. I think you know that. I don't think you're in resistance to this transition at all, are you? Yeah. And so I love that it's going to give you that opportunity to be like, I'm going to be a witch about it and just try to stay in my flow. This is a practice of staying in my flow, and my tree buddy is going to help me do that. He wants to. Like when we are breathing around them, our energy is feeding them as well. That connection is feeding them as well. It's not, we're not taking from them. They want to they have been longing for us to participate in the system, that system, for so fucking long. And there's even a part of your ancestral line that celebrates when you choose that connection. And so, I mean, that choice is such a big, big thing. Just reminding yourself of what is real, right? And that you've got this.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I think it when you're like, you're not in resistance to it. I'm like, no, I'm not. My husband's having a really tough time. I think that this has come up as this opportunity before homeownership because he specifically has lots of trauma around landlords, and like it wasn't the last house but the house before that that we were in when I was like away on a rural placement. Like our landlord came and like served him notice, and that person was who is now the mayor of our town. Like it's so complicated. Anyway, was like really crappy to him, and he has this like core memory of like eating carrots, like when he opened the door and like not being able to speak, that all of this stuff. So it's not just like, for me, I'm like, if it was just me in isolation, I'd be like, meh, whatever. Like I will put out a thing on Facebook and ask my community to come and help me do the things that I need to do. Like that's kind of the plan for today, is to be like, hey, who wants to like come to my house and I'll bake you cookies. You have to wear N95 inside because I cannot get COVID again. But I'll feed you if you want to. And like nobody has, like my thing is like no one has to say yes to that. I'll just like, here are all the terms of engagement. You want to come? Great. You don't, also great. But for him, there's a lot of stuff there. And so it's that like there's kind of disruption in the dyad, if that makes sense, between us, like because he's really struggling and I'm having to like really lean into my boundaries, and it is bringing up some stuff for me to process. Like um I was talking to someone about this, I don't remember who, but I was saying like they were talking about, oh, it was about skydiving, sorry, it was random. But a friend of mine was like, what have you not done that like you wanted to do? And I was like, I haven't skydived, but like she was like, let's do it. And I was like, I felt embodied fear for the first time in February 2022. I am not in a good enough relationship with terror and fear to like jump out of a plane. Before I thought I was brave. I was just numb. I knew I won't be doing that for a bit. I'll do other brave things that are like maybe don't seem like brave things to other people, but are definitely brave to me. But that is part of it, is like this experience is giving me an opportunity to move through the places where I feel afraid or I feel contractions or like I feel like I need to rush him and save him from his feelings or what, like, so there's a lot of rich work there with that. And I think someone said it, in the chat, they were like, they're threatening like your home. I mean, for me, it's like for a really long time, I didn't have access to my fight responses. And so it was, when stuff like this would happen, I would just like fawn all over the place, or like I would just like do whatever I needed to do to like get the stimulus away. I don't have that anymore. And I think that that's part of like me looking into the paperwork and being like, okay, like, is this even legitimate? And like realizing like, no, it's not. Like, he doesn't have a leg to stand on, and he's trying to make a case to like, if you don't whatever, then we'll kick you out in a month. And he's just trying to like use scare tactics instead of like have an adult conversation about like needing the place to be clean so he can take photos to sell it. It's like, we're not trying to not let you sell this. We actually don't even want to stay living here. We haven't told him that though. But it's bringing up a lot for my husband, and I think it's one of those opportunities where it's like the tree stuff makes sense because it's just also really in this time I can feel that being present is just like being with what is and doing whatever in that moment my body needs or the moment calls for. Like it's about being in kind of that like open, I don't want to say open anticipation because it's not like a anxiety place, but kind of just like open and receptive to whatever it is. That's what it is for me anyway, because I know that that's all that I can be responsible for, really. Like, I can't change that this is really challenging for my husband, or that it's bringing up a bunch of shit that he's been like actively repressing for a long time. I'm like, I've been telling you need to do these things for a while, but okay, we'll just let life do the thing that it does, where it doesn't let you get away with things. Like, if you want to go to the next thing, sometimes there are things that, like, if we're not in a rental again, I think he thought, oh, I'll never have to deal with this again. And so now this is happening. And I'm like, I don't think that those are unrelated. I don't think that he's being punished or we're being punished. I think it's an opportunity to like release those things and to disprove them and to repattern them before we're in a situation where that button might not get pushed again, because we won't have a landlord. And so, and for me, I'm just trying to like focus on what I can do. And I like the tree stuff makes sense to me. And when you were talking about it, like I think of it as co-regulation because of all my nervous system nerdiness. But I think, I don't think that I think there's lots of names for like the same thing, is like, becoming attuned to something that is a living being. Like, we attune to other human beings, we can attune to the sky, we can attune and co-regulate with the sky, or trees, or rocks, or grass, or whatever. I remember I posted something about this on Facebook about being like, we are not like outside of nature, like we are nature. We've forgotten that part. That doesn't mean that. And I think that that's the thing that helps us when we're co-regulating with those things, is that moment of like, there's so much in this world that makes us feel separate, and that is conditioning and illusion at the same time. But we're really not separate from anything. We're like pieces or threads in the same tapestry, if that's how my brain thinks about it a lot of the time. Blame Robert Jordan for like that whole imagery of like the wheel of time and the threads on the tapestry of life or whatever. But yeah, I appreciate the space, and I also am always like so intrigued to hear how like other people deal with when they're dysregulated. So I love it. Like, how do you deal with these things? Because I think that it's one, I'm a nerd and I'm like, data, I love it. And also, there's something really neat about learning how people manage their own nervous systems and seeing like themes, or also being like, whoa, I never thought about that. That's so interesting. So that's why I also had like opened it up for questions. I was like, if anyone has things, because like I love that, but I want to be mindful of the time. And I know you're like, we can play, but so if anyone does want to share, and if we have time, or we can talk about it another time too. I think I've gotten what I really needed. And yeah, just appreciate you all in this like affirmative space to, I think, like let the weird just be what it is always so like heartening and affirming, and just it's one of those things where it's like, we talk about trauma stuff and you're like, we're harmed in relationship, and then we heal in relationship. And I think lots of society stuff, or even our own patterns, say like we have to heal in the relationships where we're harmed, and like that's very unusual. Like, it's very unusual to have someone who hurt you also be the person who heals you, just because like math. but like this space, I feel like for a lot of us disconfirms a lot of those experiences of like otherness, and also just like, I was just reflecting when you were talking about like the Hearthkeeper thing and how long this has been going on, and like I've only been here since like December, but just like the potent the potency of community is just something that was like coming up for me, and I just want to express gratitude for that, and like getting to know people and being in this space together and being able to like info dump my brain out and have people be like, I love this, instead of like the wide-eyed like, oh my god, why is she still talking about this? So I appreciate you all like a lot, and the ability, not the ability, but like, how do I put this? I just have this image of like, did you ever play games where you like all held a blanket and then you like threw beanbags in the air? So that's the image that's coming to mind, where it's like that like safe floor to like kind of be held by, even though things are going up and down, is how I kind of feel about this space. And so I just wanted to say thanks everybody for that, because it's, this week has been dysregulating. So I'm like, oh, I really did need this.
I need it too. Like every week, there's a reason why. I think I've missed like one SASS in the what, like almost year and a half we've been doing this. I love it. It is. I look forward to it every single week. Love having these kinds of conversations. I love having the space. We can continue if anybody has anything like burning. If we do continue, I need to go grab some tea. uh, but does anyone else have any burning question? By show of hearts, is anyone like, I could really use a longer time for connection to just like hang out? So like heart react if you feel like you just need this space a little longer. All right, guys. Well, I think you're amazing. And thank you again for showing up and trusting us with your experience and your perspective. And guys, have a great week. May your practice be expansive and filled with many blessings, bright and dark. Bye, guys.